The Buffalo Bills closed out the preseason with a 24-21 win over the Chicago Bears, and I'm sharing my biggest takeaways today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of Go Bills and Buffalo's Run, also the co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, folks, I closed out our last discussion, by saying, you know what would be great? A nice long touchdown drive from the Bills starting offense at 3 and out from the defense, and then let's get ready for the Jets. And you know what? That's kind of what happened. And so a lot of good takeaways to discuss from this game, right? The Bills close out their preseason. It's over with. The next thing is roster cuts and then, of course, getting ready for the Jets. But this game, I think, gave us some clarity on some of the big questions for this team entering the next phase. So let's talk about my top takeaways. I do want to go position by position to reflect on the most notable items, at least from my perspective. And let's start with quarterback. And, of course, Josh Allen started this game, goes 5 of 7. For 49 yards, probably should have went 6 of 7, did have one drop in there from Gabe Davis. But this first-team offense with Josh Allen running it looked really good. I think all the things that you wanted to see from the Bills offense, you saw. You saw easy button throws from Josh Allen, getting the ball out quick, getting into the hands of playmakers. You saw good pass protection throughout. I'm anxious to study the tape and see what that really looked like. But whether it was Josh Allen or Kaiir Elam in there, I thought the protection was outstanding. You saw Josh Allen extend a play on that 3rd and long, that completion to Gabe Davis, rolling to his right, throwing back across the middle of the field. You know, the rules of playing quarterback don't apply to Josh Allen, so he gets to do that type of stuff. That was fun. Converted 3 third downs on the touchdown drive. The drive was 12 plays, 72 yards, capped by a 2-yard Damien Harris touchdown run. But I think that's what you want to see from this first-team offense, especially after how sloppy things were last week with penalties, with protection, all of that type of stuff. It was clean, and they scored a touchdown. Josh Allen got out of there. It's time to get ready for the Jets. I feel really good about what we saw from Josh and that first-team offense. Now, I don't feel as good about what I saw from Kaiir Elam. Kaiir Elam goes 18 of 34, 162 yards, touchdown, interception. Also fumbled the ball away on a strip sack that I don't really blame him. We'll get into that. But I think overall, I mean, Kaiir Elam found some completions, right? Wasn't all bad. But the interception was bad. I mean, that was a route that at no point did Gabe Davis win that route. Tyreek Stevenson, the rookie corner out of Miami, second-round pick, was leveraged the entire time. And I think Kaiir Elam made a goofy decision and put it, I mean, he kind of underthrew the pass too. It's like it was just an awful read and an awful throw. And then, of course, the strip sack, which I put on Alec Anderson. Alec Anderson got dusted around the edge real quick, and, you know, Kaiir Elam fumbled the football. But, I mean, we're talking 6 turnovers from the Bills' backup quarterbacks in this preseason. I mean, it's just way too much. And Kaiir Elam at no point really looked overly comfortable or in command. He certainly had his moments, right? It wasn't all terrible. But I don't know if I can say that I'm any closer to feeling good about these backup quarterbacks. It is what it is, in my opinion. You know, I think Kaiir Elam, it's a big ask for him to step into this situation as a backup, learn the offense, get acclimated with everyone, and go out there and execute with consistency. I think inconsistency probably should be the expectation. And if the Bills have to make it work without Josh Allen for any period of time and Kaiir Elam has to play, you'd hope that game planning and all of that and playing with all the starters will help him. But It's pretty rough around the edges when I watch Kaiir Elam play. And I'll tell you this about Matt Barkley. I don't feel good about what's happening with his elbow. I mean, he could be out for a while. And so that kind of puts the Bills in a position where you want to have a third quarterback. You want to have one on the practice squad. We know that they checked in on Trey Lance before he was traded to Dallas. Could be interesting to see what happens here as cuts are made. And if the Bills do something at quarterback, I think they will. And that really stems from my concern about Matt Barkley's elbow. But back to Kaiir Elam. The other thing that just bothered me was some of the ball placement was just erratic. I mean, balls that were thrown in rhythm that were not anywhere near the player. Just a lot of erratic throws. It was kind of rough to watch at times. Let's move on to the running backs, where I think there was some really good stuff here when it comes to the running backs. 34 carries, 173 yards, 5.1 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. I mean, these guys showed up and played well. I think all the way through the depth chart, these guys were outstanding. James Cook, seeing him early on, you got an idea for what the role is going to be, catching the football, running the football. He was good in pass protection, 5 carries, 23 yards, 2 catches for 14 yards. Everything looked good for James. He was playing fast, shifty, showed some physicality. I thought he was really sharp. And, I think we got a nice little glimpse as to what this could look like with him as the lead back. And I've said it a bunch of times, Devin Singletary has been the lead back for this football team for a number of years, right? 4 years in a row, the leading ball carrier, the most touches. And it looks like James Cook's primed to eat into that and absorb a lot of that and perform. Thought he was very confident running the football on Saturday afternoon. We didn't see Latavius Murray in this game, and I understand why. I mean, he's the oldest running back in the league. Do we really need to see more? Especially because Damien Harris was available for this football game, and it was important to see him. And this is one of my biggest takeaways was Damien Harris not only went out 7 carries, 25 yards, had the touchdown run, but he did it with Josh Allen on the field. And so I spent some time this past week discussing the signing of Ty Johnson and how that could signal some concern about Damien Harris and the knee soreness that he's been battling. Him going out there, despite missing all of that time and still being on the field with Josh Allen, says a lot about the plans that the Bills have for Damien Harris. And so I'm kind of back in on the Damien Harris thing. Hopefully the knee stuff can subside and he can be the player the Bills brought him in to be. But even further down the depth chart, Ty Johnson, 11 carries, 51 yards. He played well. Had a couple of nice kick returns. He recovered Andy Isabella's fumble on punt return. I think Ty Johnson showcased himself as well as he possibly could for the Bills. And I'm hopeful that he's on the practice squad and he's, right there if the Bills need him at any point this year. And then even Darynton Evans, 9 carries, 68 yards, touchdown, had the 35-yard touchdown run where he channeled his inner Marshawn Lynch and broke some tackles and scored a touchdown. And he had another good short yardage conversion as well. So top to bottom, these running backs played well. I think a lot of that has to do with, certainly not taking away from them, but the run blocking was good in this football game, 5 yards per carry, and everybody really contributed and looked good. So I thought the Bills running backs may have been the star of the show when it comes to the Bills on offense. In fact, I'll say not may have been. I think they were. These guys carried the ball really, really well. They contributed in the passing game. Their pass protection was good. A number of guys contributed, and these running backs played good football. All right, we got a bunch more to get to here, and of course, we're going to talk wide receivers, O-line, defense. All of that's coming up, but let me tell you about Harry's. Folks, I know I have a beard, but I still have to shave. You can't be having neck beard. You can't be having cheek fuzz, or else that just looks sloppy. And my go-to for a great shave at a great price is a razor from Harry's delivered right to my front door. I've really enjoyed using Harry's razors, and you got to check out their starter set. You can head to harrys.com/NFL and get a starter set for just $3. It includes a 5-blade German-engineered razor, a weighted handle, foaming shave gel, and a travel cover. And Harry's makes skincare products that will give you the best shave ever. They have creams, washes, and lotions that will keep your skin healthy and hydrated. And folks, their razors are sharp. The 8th shave with a razor is just as sharp as the first. There is simply no reason not to try Harry's. They have the highest customer satisfaction in the shaving industry, and they're offering a no-risk trial. So get your best shave ever this summer with Harry's razors and skincare products. You can get a $13 starter set for just $3 at harrys.com/NFL. That's harrys.com/NFL. NFL for a $3 starter set. Bills Mafia, let's get personal for a minute. Has anyone ever been caught skinny dipping? You know what I mean, when you dip your tortilla chip and you just get barely enough to get a dab of that salsa on it. It's okay. We've all been there. And sometimes it's just not your fault. Most tortilla chips can't even handle a chunky dip without breaking right in half. But those days are over. It's time to say goodbye to skinny dipping and hello to chunky dunking, because Zach's Mighty Tortilla Chips are literally made to dip. They're strong. They're sturdy enough to handle the heftiest dips of guac, all 7 layers of dip, and every last chunk in that salsa. So say goodbye to skinny dipping and hello to chunky dunking with Zach's Mighty Tortilla Chips. Available at Wegmans in the chip aisle. Zach's Mighty Tortilla Chips, equipped to dip. All right, let's talk some more about the offense and let's get to these wide receivers. Thought Trent Sherfield continues to just showcase this all-around skill set that I love. 2 catches for 26 yards, does a great job as a blocker, helps on special teams. I think this guy has really won so many people over. Obviously winning me over, that's great. That doesn't mean much, but it's great. He's won over this coaching staff. He's won over Josh Allen. I think in 11 personnel, your slot receiver is going to be Trent Sherfield. So 3 wide receivers on the field. I think one of them is Trent Sherfield. And I think he's the first guy in for Davis or Diggs. This guy's going to have a meaningful role. And I think his blocking, his versatility is going to mean a lot for this offense. I thought Deontay Hardy kind of got a glimpse there to see what the vision is for him. 4 catches for 23 yards. A lot of just getting the ball out quick to him in space, letting him create. I thought he showcased himself quite well. And so there's some versatility there with their options in the slot. And Sherfield and Hardy, I think, are really kind of taking advantage of their chance here with Khalil Shakir, his little injury that he's got going on. I think they're showing some consistency that, maybe we never really saw from Khalil Shakir. So stock up for Trent Sherfield and Deontay Hardy. Let's talk about Gabe Davis. I know he had a drop. I was on the Bleacher Report stream right after the game, and people were blowing up the chat with comments about the drop. I don't find myself overly concerned about it. I think Gabe's had such a good camp in preseason to this point. Even last week in preseason, he was really good. And so the overwhelming sample size here tells you that Gabe Davis is going to be just fine, even though there was a lot of inefficiency today. 1 catch on 4 targets, right? And that's kind of a concern just based on where things were last year. And of course the drop, it did happen, right? Another situation where he wasn't able to get leverage and win at the catch point. So I think he kind of got some good and bad from Gabe. Obviously Josh found him on the middle of the field on that rollout to the right. But wasn't his best game, obviously, but I don't really have a high level of concern there. And that's coming from one of Gabe's biggest doubters, right? So hopefully that sinks in well for you. The Andy Isabella, Justin Shorter conversation didn't get easier because I don't think either of them helped themselves. Justin Shorter, 1 catch for 19 yards. It was a nice play, but he had 5 targets. And I think there were some times where he had a chance to win and get leverage at the catch point and really didn't. He had a special teams blunder. I'm pretty sure that long kick return was on him for losing contain. I want to watch the tape and check it. But I thought he had some opportunities to make some plays that he didn't make. And then Andy Isabella had 2 catches for 2 yards. His involvement was pretty low in terms of targets in the offense. He passed the ball a good amount of times. You didn't really see Isabella do much. And then he fumbled on that punt return. Not that he handled the ball cleanly, right? He fielded it well, but when he was getting tackled, he fumbled. And so I don't know that either player did anything in this game that's going to really shake up this conversation. And so there's a part of me that wonders if this is the plan at wide receiver. I think they're going to roster 6. And so you've got Davis, Diggs, Sherfield, Hardy. That's 4. And then you get Shakir, Isabella, Shorter. That takes you to 7. I wonder if the Bills cut Andy Isabella, say wait in the parking lot, put Khalil Shakir on injured reserve, and then bring back Andy Isabella. We've seen them do these roster gymnastics quite a bit. I think that's a possibility. But I don't know what's going on with Shakir and the ribs and how long he's going to be out. But Shorter, Isabella, neither, I think, showcase themselves well in this game. Now, this bottom of the barrel wide receiver situation is fascinating to me, but I think when you look at the entire body of work, I think Marcell Ateman and Keyshawn Johnson kind of pulled away. You think of this mix as Ateman, Johnson, Tyrell Shavers, Des Patman, Isaiah Coulter, Brian Thompson, right? This big bucket of bottom of the barrel. A couple of guys are going to make the practice squad. I think Marcell Ateman and Keyshawn Johnson have been the most consistent and reliable out of that group. So I think they're winners today. Don't think either makes the roster, but guys that are going to make this practice squad, I think those two guys have a really good shot at doing that. At tight end, a pretty quiet day from, I guess, Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. Kincaid drew the pass interference penalty. It was a good route. The receiver or the DB kind of pulled his arm. I think it was a good call. So they were pretty quiet, and I'm going to go back and watch the tape, and I'm going to focus on the routes. I want to focus in on their blocking as well. But from the live watch, there's not a whole lot to say about those players. But Q Morris, tight end 3, I think it's always been locked up that he's tight end 3, but his touchdown catch was beautiful. I mean, a beautiful route, great finish, great throw by Kaiir Elam. That was one of the clear highlights in the game in terms of just winning a play, winning a rep, winning a route, winning a throw, all of it. Beautiful finish. Beautiful finish. Let's talk a little bit about the offensive line before we get into the defense. I think there was a lot of tinkering going on with the offensive line. Working different combinations, seeing guys in different spots. And so this is some of my biggest takeaways from that. First of all, the starting guards. O'Cyrus Torrence, once again, your starting right guard. I'm not sure if Sean McDermott's going to come out and say it, but this guy's your starting right guard, and he continues to hold his own. He continues to look comfortable, showing physicality. I've kept my eye on him as much as I could, and I'm just comfortable with him. Obviously, he'll be a big part of my tape study when I report back to you my all-22 review. But O'Cyrus Torrence, things are looking really strong there. David Edwards started at left guard in for Connor McGovern. Folks, I think there's a chance that Connor McGovern misses a few games. And David Edwards will get an opportunity to start maybe the first 2-3 games of the season. And I remember telling you this offseason that David Edwards would be a player that I'd be comfortable for the Bills to sign to start. I think he's a really good backup. I think he's an NFL starter. And the Bills have a ton of depth on the interior. I mean, you've got Torrence, Bates, and McGovern as your starter, but then you have David Edwards. I totally goofed that. You have Torrence, Morse, and McGovern as your starters. And then you have David Edwards as well and Ryan Bates in that mix. I mean, you have 5, I think, players that you feel comfortable being on the field. Now, you want your best ones in there. But I'm not sure there's a huge drop-off from Connor McGovern to David Edwards. And so I feel pretty comfortable about David Edwards stepping in and starting right away. Now, look, I mean, he's going to be tested early. Week 1, New York Jets, Quintin Williams, right? That guy's really good. You get to the Commanders, right? They've got some nice interior players in Deron Payne and John Allen. You got the Raiders in there. You feel like you can certainly manage that. They don't have much talent at defensive tackle. But there's tough assignments, right? There's going to be some tough assignments early on. I think the team has time right now to get Edwards ready to roll and start early in the season. Some other notes here on the offensive line. You saw a different situation at tackle. Spencer Brown, Deion Dawkins started the game. Feels like they played well. I know they were highly criticized coming out of last week. I think they played well in this game. We'll see what the tape says. But your first left tackle was David Quessenberry. Your first right tackle was Alec Anderson. And I think this was just kind of a reverse of some of what we saw earlier and wanting to see guys on different sides. Because then once Alec Anderson came out at right tackle, then we saw Ryan Van DeMark come in, and I think he finished the game at right tackle, and you got a chance to see him on that side where he's not as comfortable. And I watched him as much as I could live, and he's not as comfortable on the right side as he is the left side. And so I think that's good for him to get those reps so he can have more exposures and more opportunity and time on task at right tackle. But my feelings about him having to step in and play left tackle are drastically different than my feelings about him having to step in and play right tackle. So more reps is only a good thing for him there. Then you saw Richard Garage come in at left tackle. But the rotation at tackle, the point being, was very different this week. And I think they were tinkering with a lot of stuff. I don't think we saw Nick Broker in this game, if I'm not mistaken. We saw a lot of Ike Bucker. We saw a lot of Kevin Jarvis. Those guys played a lot. But I think collectively, this offensive line had a good day. They gave up 1 sack. It was Alec Anderson to Trevis Gibson. Alec Anderson's going to be a practice squad guy. Trevis Gibson's going to be a starter. And they gave up 1 sack and 4 quarterback hits and 42 dropbacks. That's really good. And they also were responsible for these running backs averaging over 5 yards per carry. I think this offensive line, maybe it wasn't their best week last week. They were really strong in this one and they ended the preseason on a high note, in my opinion. All right, folks, we're going to talk defense here in just a moment. But first, August is here, and you know what that means, the official start of fantasy football drafting month. Get championship ready for your home league by trying out Best Ball Underdog Fantasy. Underdog is the easiest place to play fantasy football and the best place for best ball. All you do is one live snake draft. There's no waivers, there's no trades, and Underdog sets your best lineup every week. Try it out now with Underdog's Best Ball Mania Tournament. It is the largest fantasy football contest of all time, and it's back again this year, even bigger, with $15 million of total prizes up for grabs, including an absurd $3 million going to the winner. And folks, the winner last year drafted their team in July, so there is no reason for you to wait around. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store with sign-up code Locked On to get your first deposit doubled up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy promo code Locked On. All right, let's talk about the defense. And one of the big notes with the defense here is John Butler called the plays. So Sean McDermott, I think he had said after the game that he wanted to get more of a look at who was coming in and out of the game and manage things a little bit differently. And so John Butler, the Bills' DB coach and passing game coordinator, he got the opportunity to call the plays. And if you guys remember when Leslie Frazier moved on, John Butler was kind of the guy I said, I think he'll be, if they name a defensive coordinator, I think he's in the mix along with Bobby Babich and Eric Washington. And so it's interesting that Sean steps aside for this game and John Butler takes over the play calling. Sean McDermott, in his press conference after the game, kind of confused people and said that we'll see on who calls plays defensively against the Jets. And then afterwards, he clarified to Jay Skursky that he will call the plays on defense. So a little bit of a weird situation there. But the clarification is that Sean will call plays against the Jets. Let's talk about my takeaways from what happened on the field. With the defensive line, Boogie Basham, he started this game. So it was Greg Rousseau on one side, Boogie Basham, your starter, on the other side. And I think last week it was Leonard Floyd, and I think the week before that it was AJ Epenesa. So they've had some different guys in there opposite of Rousseau. He played well, Boogie did. Had a sack, tackle for loss, quarterback hit. I think he's had a really strong preseason. Hopefully that continues into the regular season, but no doubt he's had a strong campaign. And so has AJ Epenesa, who had a sack, 2 tackles for loss, and a quarterback hit. He was close to having 2 sacks in this game, so I thought it was a strong performance from AJ. Thought Kingsley Jonathan probably should have had a sack, was held on the play. They called it, but I think he played well as well. And so I think this plan at defensive end is this, in my opinion. I think Von Miller starts the year on PUP, and they roster 4. Rousseau, Floyd, Epenesa, and Basham. If they do keep 5, I think Lawson makes it. But I think the plan is that Lawson can get back on the practice squad. I've said this before, Shaq Lawson, after he left Buffalo, he signed a 3-year, $30 million deal with Miami. He lasted 1 year in Miami, then he goes to Houston, then he goes to the Texans, or the Jets. He doesn't last long at all in either place, only a few weeks in both places before he's back to Buffalo. The NFL is not lining up to sign Shaq Lawson. So I think that with Shaq Lawson being a vested veteran, he doesn't have to clear waivers, anything like that. They can cut him, put him back on the practice squad, and then you can keep Boogie Basham. And some people said, look, I think the Bills were showcasing Boogie Basham for a trade. I'm not going to dismiss that, but I think that they think Boogie Basham is going to be a big part of what they do with their defensive line rotation this year. And so I've seen them use him up and down the front. He started this game, which is good momentum for him. I think it was good all around for Boogie Basham. On the defensive tackles, I don't think there was many splashy moments. Tim Settle had a pass breakup, but I thought they controlled the action up front. I thought it was a strong game for them. Jordan Phillips did play. I saw him at least out there a little bit, so I'll be curious to see what those reps look like when I go back and watch the tape. But It was good to see him back on the field. Again, not a lot of splashy stuff from the defensive tackles, but they controlled what they were supposed to control, and I thought won the battle up front for the most part. At linebacker, not feeling any better about this, are we? Tyrel Dodson had some struggles in this game, took some bad angles, got exposed in the middle of the field in coverage. Obviously, the long completion to DJ Moore, where DJ Moore is literally on his knees and somehow Tyrel Dodson couldn't tackle him. Those are blunders. That's a low light. And I think it's just exactly what we've seen from Tyrel Dodson throughout the starts that he had last year, throughout this preseason. There's just limitations there, and he's going to get exposed in coverage in the middle of the field. Now, he had a couple of bounce back moments with some good downhill run fills, but I think his range is limited and his coverage ability is very concerning to me. You saw AJ Klein play in this game, had some good downhill run fills. Again, there's limitations with him in space. Terrell Bernard warmed up, but didn't play in this game with a hamstring. He's supposed to be able to practice again next week. We'll see. I mean, it didn't help Terrell Bernard that he didn't play this preseason, but it certainly elevated the concern and got you a lot more curious about what things could look like with him in there. So I'm interested to see what he can do for this defense this year. I mean, he's kind of the mystery box guy, and right now the mystery box guy sounds pretty good to me. We didn't see Dorian Williams in this one. I know he's got a calf injury. Baylon Spector got hurt with a hamstring injury. I don't think that's a good thing at all. The Bills are sorting out their linebackers, and last year they typically keep 6 linebackers. They've had as many as 7 linebackers on the roster. Sorting this out is going to be a real challenge. If they want to keep 6, or maybe I think they should keep less than 6. I don't think they have a lot of great options, and so maybe that leads them to keeping more options. But it's going to be tough to keep some of these depth linebackers over better players at potentially receiver, corner, edge, even the offensive line, running back. I don't know. Linebacker situation's a mess to me outside of Matt Milano. Tyler Matakevich played. That's good to see him back and running around, but there's just a lot to figure out at linebacker, and my concern level remains where it's been since they lost Tremaine Edmunds. It's going to be interesting. Maybe there's something to be said for game planning, being aware of tendencies, positioning guys to make plays. But what I love about preseason is that it's just execution. Can you go out there and execute? I don't know if these guys can. At corner, how about this development, right? Christian Benford starts. Then we see Dane Jackson. Then we see Kaiir Elam. Now, Sean McDermott told us after the game that Kaiir Elam is still in the mix to start, but come on now. There is 0 actual indicators that that's true. Guy's playing in the third quarter of the third preseason game. And here's the reality of the situation. Christian Benford beat out Kaiir Elam last year. Benford started the opener, and he's beating him out again. And so Benford beat out Elam last year. It looks like he's beating him out this year. What indication do we have that Kaiir Elam's going to ever beat out Christian Benford? Very concerning situation. I don't know if the Bills are going to give up on the guy. He's 22 years old. Like I've mentioned a bunch of times, he's a year and a half younger than Dalton Kincaid. But the momentum here is not good. I mean, it's probably going to be the case where Kaiir Elam's inactive on game days. Very concerning trajectory for the Bills' first-round pick in 2022. But look, how do you argue with it? Christian Benford's been better. He's been better, objectively better. And in this game, he starts, he gets challenged on third down by the Bears' best receiver, DJ Moore, vertical route. Benford is leveraged the entire time, wins at the catch point, knocks the ball away. Feels like anytime the Bills give Christian Benford an opportunity, he responds favorably. And so for as much as we want the first rounder to play, we want the best players to play. And right now, it ain't Kaiir Elam. Now, not that Kaiir Elam did anything bad in this game. I don't even think he was challenged. But when he played and with whom he played, to Bruce Nolan, that's what he likes to say about preseason. It's not how you play, it's when and with whom. think we're getting plenty of answers, despite Sean McDermott not saying it out loud, where Kaiir Elam sits on this football team right now. I thought in the slot, Siran Neal was terrific. I mean, he played really well. Physical run fills, in coverage, making plays at the catch point. I think Siran Neal's had a couple of good weeks in a row, giving me more and more comfort about him having to step in for Taron Johnson. I thought Jamarcus Ingram played well as well, playing in the slot. So I think the Bills have some nice options there. Cam Lewis at safety, who can also play in the slot. Physical game for him, right? You felt his presence, especially in that third quarter. He had a couple of plays there right in a row, a couple of run fills that should have been a completion. That guy didn't catch the ball because Cam Lewis came in and just stuck his shoulder in there. Good physical play. And Cam Lewis is making this roster. I've been telling you that for a while, but we'll see what ultimately happens there. But I feel like he's earned it. And then on special teams, I think we should at least note that Tyler Bass missed a field goal. He's had 2 misses this preseason. I don't find myself super concerned about Tyler Bass, but certainly want him to make like a high percentage of his kicks in the regular season. And hopefully he's just getting his misses out of the way here early on. So something to note, but I don't know if there's any level of panic or concern that I actually have there. All right, folks, there you have it. My takeaways from the Bills' preseason win over the Bears. And we got a lot going on this week on the podcast. They're going to have final cuts. So before final cuts, I'd love to give you a roster projection. I'd love to do an all-22 review. Would love to get to herd mentality. We obviously have to react to whatever happens with the final cuts. I've got some guests that I want to get to later in the week. And then at some point, we got to shift our attention to the Jets. So a lot coming here for you on the podcast. Could be a bunch of episodes this week because I'm not going to host or anything. I'm just going to keep producing and telling you what I'm thinking about this football team. So make sure that you are subscribed. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I'll catch up with you again really, really soon.